So I want to talk to you about team health, and I jokingly titled this "Team Health for Fun and Profit." But what really drove me to write this presentation is I've worked on teams that we have good team health and we can get so much done, and we deliver product rapidly. The client's always happy, and I've worked on teams that the team health isn't good. We don't have trust. We can't communicate with each other. And you know what we deliver? Not much. During the times the team is unhappy, our delivery tends to fall too. And so when giving another talk that I'm giving at 11 today, it occurred to me, maybe we should spend some time talking just about what makes a team healthy and happy. Because that really, for me, turned out to be the thing that was the best metric for, am I going to deliver? Obviously, I'm Clay Dowling. I quite also obviously love sticking my name on all the things. My Twitter handle, if anybody wants to follow me on Twitter, I will warn you, you'll hear less about technology and coaching and more cat pictures. This slide deck is also available online if you want it. I will caution you for this presentation in particular, these slides are my mental cues for what I want to talk about. You can't take these slides and share them with your coworkers and expect them to get anything out of it. Fortunately, this is being recorded, so if you got something out of what I'm talking about today, you can go to these recordings, which I'm assuming are going to be available.
They will be on YouTube.
Excellent. That's both really cool and really intimidating. So if I die up here, you can share this with your coworkers and say, don't do what this guy did. Okay. So, we work in an industry where we're really privileged. We get lots of perks, all in the name of employee happiness and retention, that other people think are just crazy. Most of my friends that don't work in tech, and all of my wife's friends, they can't believe that we have beer taps in the office. We have 2 rotating taps. We have a wine cooler. We have a chef. We have foosball tables. And they're all like, well, how does any work get done and you don't spend your day goofing off? We've got all that stuff. And yet, how many people here have been in their current job for longer than 5 years? Okay, we've got a few. Excellent. How many people you have coworkers or supervisors in the room? Okay, I've got a few. You're going to sit this question out. Don't answer. Because my next question, how many of you are looking for other work, open to new opportunities if they should show up? Okay, so that's a problem. That's, if I'm trying to run a company, I need people. Somebody has to do the work. It's the people who are always leaving. Who's doing the work? Well, the person doing the work is somebody new who doesn't know how we operate, who's just learning that system, and we're constantly spending time starting over and retraining. Incredibly expensive to constantly be training new people. And also, the work doesn't get done as fast as it could if I had experienced people. So that's a problem. So, great, we've got all these employee incentives. What we don't have is people that stay. So, a social networking application called Blind, which specializes in anonymous social networking for the technology industry, they did a survey of their users. Their users reported, 57% of their users reported that they were burned out. They're going to work because they've got bills to pay, kids to feed. The bank wants their money every month or the house goes back to them. Banks, by the way, are very unforgiving about this subject. And I'd say that might match the survey results we saw in here. A little over half the people said, hey, I'm looking. The burnout is expensive. Harvard Business Review estimated, I don't remember exactly the year this is from, but it's within the last 5 years, 125 million to 190 million in additional medical expenses that are related to burnout. Not other expenses, not workplace injuries, not everybody's having kids and oh my gosh, we've got to pay to have all these kids vaccinated and their well baby visits, which is also expensive, by the way. if you've ever seen those bills. This is expenses just related to burnout. And it could be simple things like, hey, somebody had to go to the emergency room because he can't feel his arm because he's got carpal tunnel syndrome because he's been working 60-hour weeks for the last year. All that stuff adds up. So we're losing money just because we're burning people out. So what can we do about it? Or maybe more specifically, the question we want to ask is, what can I do about it? Pardon me, I'll stop doing that. That is a reflexive gesture for me. Because before we can change the place where we work, we need to change ourselves. If it was easy as making somebody else change without a change in ourselves, consultants would have a great job. Consultants would be out of work because you could all just do this on your own. So the first thing we have to do is change ourselves. And my semi-mocking model for this is that self-care is best care. And on teams that are healthy, I've noticed that everybody's really good at self-care. If they take care of themselves, they're getting along better with the people, they're working on the right things, they're delivering regularly. And if they're not taking care of themselves, if they're working crazy hours, they work through lunch, they work over the weekend, we aren't delivering that well. In fact, they're doing those crazy things because we aren't delivering, which makes the problem worse. So, you need to take care of yourself physically. You need to take care of your mental health. You need to deal with your work-life balance. Maybe one of the more important things you have to do is figure out what's really important to you. I had the chance to look back through the quick notes I wrote to myself 6 months ago when I first came up with the idea for this talk. And that was the very first, half those notes are what's important to me. Why am I working at all? I could take a low responsibility job, work part-time, and still make a living if I was smart about it. I'm living in a shack off the grid, but if that managed to take care of the things that were important to me, I could do that. So for me, just to give you an idea of the sort of things that might show up on the list, some of the things that are important for me, I need to be able to take care of my family, which means for me keeping a roof over the head, being able to pay medical bills. We can go out to eat every now and then. It also means being able to take care of my emotional responsibilities for my family. So, if you've ever been in a family, there's a crisis somewhere, most of the time, some sort of crisis. And so I need to be able to take care of my wife's emotional needs too, when she needs emotional support. When I was going through some of my more challenging work situations, working for my current employer, Pillar Technology, I'm in a 100% travel job. And at the same time, my mother-in-law was dying. You get to be 80, this sort of thing starts to happen. And so something that was really important for me, which caused me to change my work arrangements. Unfortunately, I could stay with the same company because we're fairly flexible about our work arrangements, is I needed to be there for my wife. Flying from Ann Arbor to Des Moines every week stopped working for me during that period of time. Fortunately, I was able to change my work arrangements so I could be home to take care of my wife while she took care of her mother. Things like that are really important. Sorry to bring this down, by the way. I went from beer pong to dying mother-in-law. Just realized what that was. But that was one of the things that got me thinking about this, that importance of the work-life balance. So, sort of in the realm of mental health, at Pillar, and by the way, we are hiring. I don't mean this to sound like a sales pitch for Pillar, but we are hiring. We do have a policy of we work 40 hours. We don't work more than that. We don't do nights and weekends. Says the guy who's 3 hours from his house and slept in a hotel last night. We don't do death marches because it's bad for our brains. You get tired, you do stupid things. The code that you write during a death march is probably going to cost your client money because because there's going to be things wrong in there. You're going to miss sales. You're going to screw stuff up. The last two points on there: eat your lunch and not at your desk. Those are something I struggle with on my current team. You need a mental break in your day. The idea that you're going to work 8 hours straight and be productive there, that's a nice fiction we tell ourselves. The reality is, you're spending the entire time at your desk, you're thinking about problems and you're making decisions. When you're hungry, you don't make good decisions. You make really bad decisions. You walk out of Costco with, 2 freezers full of meat and you've got 1 freezer. We had this discussion at work yesterday because some of my colleagues had made the mistake of going to Costco hungry. So, take that time to take care of yourself. Take the break. Maybe go out and take a nice walk. The point is, get up, take care of your mental health needs. One moment. One of my colleagues thought it would be, who knows I'm presenting today, thought it would be funny to call me. Take care of your physical health. And I'm sorry, I'm walking completely out of frame. Your body wants to move. You will feel better if your body gets up and moves. Even if you have a physical disability, there's probably something you can do to get some movement into your body. And we think of this as a mental profession. All the work we do is in our mind. It's called, I had a name for what we call this, but I don't remember what it is. But even though we use our mind to do our work, our mind has to be carried around and fed by our body. And that means we need to take care of it. So you don't have to run a marathon. If you can run a marathon, power to you. You're probably not going to, this probably isn't a subject area where you're having trouble. But find something physical that you can do that you enjoy and go do that thing. This helps not just your physical health, but it's going to help your mental health too. I personally love hiking. My wife and I recently took up nature photography. And that's something I'd done for years, but I got her to do it with me too. And so now I've got even more incentive to go. And we're perfectly happy spending 8 hours hiking a difficult technical trail. You come back tired, you're dirty, you smell bad, and you feel great. You feel like, literally you feel like you can climb a mountain because you may just have done it. I did this in Michigan. Our mountains aren't that tall. If I was nice to you, instead of making you look at these blank white slides, I would have interspersed it with pictures of the places that we went. I'm not that nice. The other thing to keep in mind, your work isn't your life. If you find that your work is your life, this is a great opportunity and a wake-up call to get out and change that. Have something you do outside of work. And I'll be honest, I bring this up because I was very guilty of this, especially early in my career. My late 20s when I first started programming. I went to work, I worked crazy hours, I came home, I wrote more code at home, inspired by what I did at work. And that wasn't good for my brain. Ultimately, I wound up sitting in my office with the lights off crying at work. Not a good scene. Don't do it. Have an interest, something that you like to do outside of work. Have a place to go that's away from work. It can be a club, it can be a church, whatever it is. Just have this thing that you do that's not at work. Maybe you like to walk along the Olentangy River Trail here. When I travel for work and have to stay in Columbus, I try to do that at least once a week, if not every day. I love that trail, even though occasionally trucks do drive down it. That was a very alarming picture I saw last week. And speaking of work-life balance, go home every now and then. Make sure your dog knows you live there. it can really happen. You're away so much. Your animal's kind of like, I don't know this person anymore. He comes around sometimes. Fortunately, my animals all do know who I am. And as my mother-in-law could tell you, they will follow me around in a pack. I have no dogs. It turns out that we are a cat family. I love dogs, but lifestyle-wise, dogs don't play well with our family. We've tried. It ends in tears. So we are a cat family. But it turns out a cat will follow you around just like a dog will. My cat likes me so much, he will walk away from a chipmunk that he's eating to rush out and greet me in the driveway. It's not a pretty image. But if you've ever seen a cat with a chipmunk, they're pretty proud. They're pretty happy about that chipmunk. For him to walk away from it, he likes me. So before I move on to the next, let me see if I can step back for just a second. Do we have questions about how do you do the self-care? Or what should you do about self-care? Are these things that people are doing now? Are you practicing good self-care? Okay. I get some nods, a couple of thumbs up. Okay. How many gym memberships in this room? How many of you have seen the inside of your gym since it was last painted? Okay. I can't raise my hand up for that one. I was last there in February, and there's been several notices about, hey, we're closed for renovation in this part. All right, I want to talk a little bit now about, this talk is about team health. So let's move on to what we're going to do for our team. The first thing to know when we're talking about team health, I found the hot spot, is that you yourself are a leader. And you might not think of yourself as a leader. You might be pretty low on the corporate totem pole. But I have learned some through just what I've lived through, but also what I have observed with some coworkers. You can be the new guy. You can still have a big impact on your team's health, both positive and negative. I have a new team member who is stressing my team currently. I have also seen people, they were new to programming. They've been programming for less than a year. We hired a guy right out of a boot camp, young guy. And he was the most wonderful thing for team health. We almost wanted to make him a mascot. Turns out he wasn't having it, and he's now leading a development team for a startup. But my point is, you don't need a title. You don't need to be the senior person on the team to act in a leadership capacity for your team. You personally can influence people and get them to do things that will make life better for everybody. So last weekend, my wife and I accidentally renewed our wedding vows. Our church sent out a thing. Everybody was having an anniversary on a 5-year mark. They sent out a thing, hey, we have this nice dinner, come to Mass. They, oh, great, we'll get a dinner, we'll go to church, because apparently they want to see us occasionally before they're going to feed us. Perfectly reasonable on their part. And we get there, and the priest, he's talking about, okay, so now for the vow renewal. And I wasn't dressed quite this nice. It was an evening service. It was pretty casual, normally pretty casual. I mean, they've got guitars in the band. It's not the big formal thing I'm expecting on Sunday. And I show up like this to renew my wedding vows. But something that struck me out of there, of course, anybody who's been married to church, there's always a reading from Paul's letter to the Corinthians, usually from 1 Corinthians, about love. And in the hymn that we closed the Mass with, where we all, my wife and I go, okay, we can get out and get fed now, now that we've been through this unexpected vow renewal. there was this line in the hymn from actually the first line of the chapter that quote's usually from. That if I speak without love, no matter how good my words are, I'm just a loud noise in the room. I'm not helping anybody. And I'm not talking about romantic love here, although in the context of a vow renewal, that's obviously what we meant in that hymn. But just that love for your fellow coworker. Not the thing you have to declare on HR, hey, I'm dating this person now. So it goes in the HR forms, you don't wind up one of you supervising the other. But that instinct inside of you that helps you look out for the people you work with, that makes you want them to have a good experience at work, that makes you feel not good if they aren't having a good experience at work, if they're having a hard time. So, if you approach what you're doing with your team with that love, even if you're that low person on the totem pole, you can really have an impact. They can feel that when you're talking to them, that you care about what happens to them. That will improve your relations with them. Will cause them to receive what you say is something that's valid and legitimate, and you're coming from an honest place. They will respond to you in the same way. They will give you feedback from that place of caring, that they care about you. That's going to make them see you as a leader, even if you don't have the title. So we're talking about team care. This, by the way, is the part of this talk where what's on the slide, these are talking points for me. These are the parts, don't share the slides with your coworkers without sharing this recording too, or at least bring back the high points that you got out of this. Hopefully there are high points that you got out of this. Hopefully the high point is, yeah, he uses GitLab. So you're talking to your teammates. We've got lots of things we can talk about with our teammates. We can talk about team joy, how we're communicating, our team norms, our accountability with each other. But when you're talking with them, you don't really want to listen to respond. You want to listen to understand. And the difference when you're listening to understand, you may not respond at all. Your entire response to them talking could be just listening to what's bothering them, or listening to what's making them happy at work. That is an unbelievably valuable service you can provide to the people that you work with. If you listen to them to understand what's going on with them and what their concerns are. How many married men in the room? Okay, how many of you have had to learn that lesson about when your wife brings a problem to you, she's not looking for you to solve the problem. She just wants you to listen. Fortunately, I actually learned that from my wife before we were married. It's a hard lesson. But take that lesson with you. Yes? Yes, that is correct. For those who couldn't hear that, we had some wonderful marital advice here. Sometimes when you're in discussion with your spouse or your spouse-to-be, there's this thing called yes, dear. You just sort of give a blanket response. And your wife can tell, your partner can tell, they're not listening. So what you need to understand instead is that yes or no isn't necessarily the right response. Sometimes it's no response. Did I get that correctly? Okay. I'm trying to, because the recording can't pick up the audience sometimes. All right. So when we're talking to our teammates, something we have to be, really, really have to be careful of. There are some things we can talk about openly. I'm a big believer in retrospectives. after every work iteration, which we do a 2-week iteration where I work, we like to do a retrospective with the team. What went well? What didn't go well? What can we change? And there are some things you can talk about openly there. There are other things you absolutely can't. I can't bring up, Ed is stressing me the heck out. I don't want to work with Ed. You can't bring that up in that group meeting. Ed's going to get mad. He's going to get defensive. No good's going to come out of this. All you're going to do is make it harder to work with Ed. I bring Ed up, but Ed's actually a good guy. Ed's probably going to watch these things. His name was just top of my mind. There are some things you have to talk about in private because they're too personal, they're too hard to bring up in a group setting. They'll cause hard feelings. Maybe it's just something that somebody doesn't want to talk. It's important to them, but they don't want to share it with a group. But they need to share it with somebody. You may be having problems at home. I had a teammate. His wife left him right after they took possession of their new house. Not something he wants to bring up in the retrospective, but he does need to talk to somebody. He needs to talk to people. Say, hey, I've got this thing that's going on. My brain might not be here for a little bit. Something that I like to do, or I try to do, I'm not good at doing it, is I try to talk with every person of my team privately, once every week or once every iteration, just to find out what's going on with them. What are the concerns that they have that aren't being addressed? What are their high points that they haven't gotten to share, that maybe weren't appropriate to share with the group? Let me see if I can safely move to the next slide. All right. I can probably even move past it. Do we have questions about, talking with the teammates? By the way, we've got 20 minutes to go, and I'm about, as I can see by my little bar at the bottom, I'm 75% of the way through the slides, and the last one is a thank you. So feel free to come at me with questions. We've got the time. And bring your questions up whenever they come to your mind. So something that's really important to bring up, people don't mention it when they're unhappy. They're having a bad time at work and they're disgruntled, they're burned out, which 50% of your teammates are. Thank you. Apparently the line's a little more over this way. They aren't going to bring that up. You don't walk into the team room, if you want a happy, healthy team, you don't walk into the team room and say, I hate this job, I want to leave. Usually if somebody's doing that, they're ready to leave. It's too late to heal the damage. So you want to talk to them. Are they happy? Are there things about the job that they're liking now? But also, are there things that they don't like? You really want to find out about the things they don't like because those are things you can take action on. Do they feel like they're being heard? And one of the reasons for those one-on-one meetings, and these, by the way, these don't have to be that formal scheduled one-on-one. It can be, hey, I'm going to go out to lunch with Ed and find out what's on his brain right now. It can be Janice and I happen to be alone in the team room. What's going on with her right now? Got to be careful. And these conversations they can be reasonably easy to start up. Hey Janice, what did you do last weekend? I'm probably going to get pictures of whatever she did, but it's an avenue to open conversation. You can use those things they share to sort of dig deeper about what's going on with them. But ask them if they're being heard. If they've got concerns they've raised and they feel like, well, nothing's happened. I came to you 2 weeks ago about this process that we've got to do is wasting my time and not delivering value. And nothing's happened about it and I haven't heard anything back. make sure you ask about those things. Had a comment from over here? I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, this is on. Let me see if I can safely extract this. Well, I want your question to be on the record because I may respond to it, and nobody's going to know what I'm talking about.
Where I was working, it was we'd do a team evaluation or feedback once a year. What is good here? What is bad about here? Where does it rate on the list of, on the scale of 1 to 5? That kind of thing. One of the things that impacts, are they being heard? For 5 years, the number one issue was the same thing. And every year, management left it off of the list of things we're going to address. Finally, 6 years later, they got it on the list of things that they want to address and solicited feedback from people about how to fix the problem. It was just, you can tell people, you're listening, and most companies do, but they can tell if you're listening from the fact of what happens after.
You should correct that in some companies.
Okay, every now and then, some company does. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Can I ask, what was the 5-year issue?
Oh.
Can I ask what the 5-year issue was?
The 5-year issue had to do with a time reporting application they had. It was, you will enter your hours for the purpose of tracking the time you worked on the project. Great. But you will also enter your hours for the purpose of billing overtime to the projects and allocating funds for the projects. Those are two different things. They're asking to be reported on with one piece of data. And the pushback from project managers on the allocation of funds for projects was unbelievable. They wanted to track hours. Everybody was on salary, so it was not a case of tracking paid time or whatnot. It was just, we want to know how long people are working here. But because of the fund allocation part of it, you got a push from the manager saying, okay, you can't put in time listing what you're actually working on this project.
All right, thanks for that feedback. So that actually brings up something I was going to talk about a little later, but it's great to talk about right now. One of the best things you can do for team health is hold each other accountable. That is how you demonstrate that somebody is being heard, if you are holding them accountable and if they are being accountable for the things they said they do. So yeah, everybody says, hey, this app doesn't work for the purpose we're trying to use it. Can we get a new procedure? If they're ignoring that, that sends a message. It leads to disgruntlement. You can make everything a lot happier if when you hear that, you take action. Or if you just up front say, yeah, I understand the problem. Unfortunately, we have other things we have to solve right now, so we'll have to put that on the back burner. That is a form of feedback. It's not what you wanted to hear, but at least you understand, okay, they know what's wrong. They understand the pain I'm feeling. And hopefully we'll get to a point where we can fix that. Yes?